15 minutes, 20 minutes. So this is what I would do. I would like to express my gratitude to the organizer, especially good friend architect Juan Ramon Jimenez, for inviting me to this conference, Japanese-Philippine conference on the restoration, reconstruction of the cultural heritage properties of Bohol and Cebu. I will be focusing on my island province of Bohol, in particular my home diocese of Tagbilaran. And I'd like to greet you good morning. And at the same time, I would also like to express my deep appreciation for all of us, all of you who are here, for sharing your time as well as also sharing your moments of learning the things that relate to the conservation of the cultural heritage, not only of a certain sector but also of the Filipino nation. My first frame is heritage is non-renewable, and I chose this because we would see throughout the world there are different cultural properties that are in danger, and some of them have disappeared. Our good friend, professor from Japan, the one who preceded me, made mention of risk management plans. Sometimes when we do risk management plans, we take into account the status, the stability of those cultural properties. Some of them are truly worth saving. A number of them have disappeared. And so what we know of cultural heritage is that it is non-renewable. Once you lose them forever. Anything that's original, you cannot simply replicate, you cannot simply clone, unlike animals or humans, one can clone them, but with cultural heritage it's quite difficult. So I chose this because this is what occurred in Bohol, also in Cebu, and also in Palo, Leyte, and also in Eastern Samar, in particular the church in Iwan. You would see that there are many reasons why cultural heritage is non-renewable. It could be natural disaster, for instance, earthquake, or it could be because of human neglect. In 1205, Francis of Assisi visited a church in Assisi. 1.5 kilometer from Assisi is the San Damiano Church. This is San Damiano now. And in 1205, he went there because he wanted to discern the Spirit, but at the same time wanted to pray and ask the Lord for guidance. And here he received his first calling. And what was that first calling? His first calling would be the words of the Lord Jesus that he spoke to Francis of Assisi. He told Francis of Assisi, "Francis, go and rebuild my church, which you can see has fallen into ruin." Why did Francis receive that calling? Well, for the simple reason that when he visited San Damiano, it was really in almost total disarray. It was not even fit for human habitation, not fit for use, because the walls were crumbling, and the roof was also falling down. And so that was what Francis discovered. That was his experience. And so what Saint Francis did was, he thought, the first thing he did was to really gather the stones and then try to be a carpenter, try to be a mason, and try to recover the San Damiano Church. The cross on the left side, that's the image that Saint Francis focused on, where he heard that voice telling him to rebuild my church. That's the San Damiano cross at the church. That's the interior at the middle. And you will see it's a very simple church. According to Italian experts in archaeology, it doesn't have any significant feature. No? This is the interior. This is the original church. Actually, is this one, simply that one. This would be the addition, but that's just the original church. You could see the silhouette of the facade that fits into this one, and that's from there. So, from that, we could see that not only human neglect, but also natural disaster really caused the destruction of a church, loses its meaning, loses its significance or value. And so, the focus that I would have today is reflecting on the words of the Lord to Saint Francis. Francis, go and rebuild my church. This is the topic of my talk, perspectives of the Diocese of Tagbilaran on the forthcoming church restoration and reconstruction program. Forthcoming because the actual restoration reconstruction program has not started. What we have are pre-reconstruction works. So the actual reconstruction and or restoration program will only occur if we are going to follow the terms of the quadripartite memorandum of agreement by the entered into by the four government cultural agencies. It would supposed to start by September, that is next month. But we would see that it may not occur by that time. Now, what happened, of course, we all know, was that on the 15th of October, Bohol was the epicenter of a 7.2 magnitude earthquake. And it was located 6 kilometers southwest of Sagbayan. And Sagbayan would be somewhere, that's the epicenter. Sagbayan would be that one. And the depth of the earthquake was 12 kilometers, very quite shallow. According to seismologists, the shock wave emanated from this epicenter going in the direction of west. And you will notice this is where the tail end of the shock wave was. And that tail end generated something like 500 meters of shoreline. There was a vertical uplift. But at the same time, the consequence would be that both the churches of Loon and Maribohok really were almost literally pulverized. Some of the major shock wave ran from there, south, and from here, from the epicenter going, west going and south. So it affected a number of churches like Lobo, Baclayon, and Luay. And you would see that it was in the vicinity of intensity 8 to 9, 100 kilometers length of new fault according to the seismologist. And there is a vertical displacement maximum level of 5 meters, 209. People were confirmed dead, 877 were confirmed injured, 8 were confirmed missing. According to our provincial governor, in his address to the province last November, he said that the damage to infrastructure was somewhere like 12.2 billion. Of course, this is what we've seen. This is Loon. This is now Loon, and this is Maribohok. These are the two churches at the tail end of the earthquake, shockwave from the epicenter of the earthquake. This is also Maribohok. This is right after the earthquake, like moments after. There's nothing to see. The footprints, this is the footprint of Loon. That's looking east. This is still the footprint looking west. That's also Loon. And Albuquerque did not sustain major damage, but minor portions of the facade fell off. But Baclayon, always famed, is sustained some damage on the facade, belfry, watchtower. And when you look at the churches outside, we could assess the damage, but inside, you could see a higher degree of damage to the churches, to the interior fabric. And that's Cortes. It sits on a promontory, on a bluff, almost near a cliff here, Pangpang. But the government is doing the riprapping of the area where we have concern of erosion. And that's the facade. But that's just the facade. We're just showing the facade. This is Dawis on the island of Panglao. This is Luay. The pediment simply slid down from where it was and down to the ground where the earthquake occurred. Only 30% of Lobok Church remain, but that's very unstable. What do we do? So that was the question that had been asked by people. This church is also heritage, but not listed not listed by the National Museum, National Historical Commission of the Philippines, but the diocese has identified it as a heritage church. This is in Clarin, and when you look at the facade, right now, it's still there, but the entire nave has simply collapsed. This is Tubigon, and that's Tubigon now. This is in the, you know where this is? It's not one of the churches in Italy. This is the church in Tubigon. That's a ceiling painting. That's that's a crossing cupola. And this is also the Tubigon church, ceiling painting, looking towards the sanctuary. But that's how it looks now, right after the earthquake. Of course, the Kisabe painting constitutes cultural heritage. But, well, that's the damage that it has sustained right now. Bohol also has watchtowers, of course Cebu has. And a number of them were, all of them were declared by the National Museum. The director of the National Museum, Director Jeremy Barnes, is here, and he can attest to everything that I've been saying. Most of the Bohol watchtowers were declared by the National Museum as National Cultural Treasures in 2011. But a number of them sustained damage, like the one on the end of the mangrove in Luay. This is the Luay Watchtower, and this structure keeled over, keeled over. And this is the Punta Cruz Watchtower at the tip of Punta Cruz Point. And this is at the very end of the tail end, the end of the tail end of the island, and that's the damage sustained by this watchtower. This is the belfry of Lobo. Only one half has been retained by the earthquake. Well, this is the watchtower belfry of Balilihan, but it's like this structure is like Maribohok and Loon. You won't see anything, no? Because the whole structure simply collapsed, pulverized. So 2 days after the earthquake, prior to the earthquake, prior to the task force, the NCCA gathered its other agencies, cultural agencies, the National Museum and the National Historical Landmark, National Historical Commission of the Philippines, for a meeting and created the NCCA Heritage Task Force. And on the 17th of October, 2 days after the earthquake, we did a rapid assessment. That's the director himself up front. And the only way to get to Loon and Maribohok was by pump boat. And so we had to take this going there. It's an hour and a half ride. And you can't even reach the Pantalan because, well, there was already an uplift in that area. This is what we saw 2 days after the earthquake. This is Maribohok. Well, this is the facade, what used to be the facade of Loon. This is in Loon. This is Loon. People went to the church because they believed, when the earthquake struck, they believed that the church was still standing, only to discover that it's pulverized. This is Tubigon. That's the Bishop of Tagbilaran. This is the former Bishop of Tagbilaran. Bishop Leopoldo Tubulak is from Santander, but his mother's from Dawis, Bohol. Bishop Pedroso is the Bishop of Tagbilaran. Now, both of them went to visit the site. And you won't see this now because this has been repaired by the DPWH, but this is the Church of Lobo. This is the interior 2 days after the earthquake. But most of this this area has been cleared by the National Museum, so you won't see much of the damage already. This is the church of interior of Dawis. That's in Baclaran. Right after the earthquake, 2 days after, we went to Lobok for a pulong, pakikinabi, discussion, dialogue with the government officials and also the parish priest of Lobok. But also in the evening, we gathered together to assess the damage. The Secretary of Tourism and all the other government cultural agencies officers. You know him, no? This is the DBM Secretary. Secretary Abad visited the Bishop. This is our governor. And this is the chair of the Provincial Tourism Council. This was in December. Secretary Abad promised 650 million for the initial government subsidy for the restoration and reconstruction of the sites. Now, after the rapid assessment, the national government, culture agencies, put on a table the different levels of damage and the sites that have been damaged. So they categorize the damage into minimal, moderate, extensive, and large scale. So you get a fairly clear picture of the cultural properties that have been damaged by the earthquake and to what extent the damage, the sites have sustained the damage. And initially there was a phase. First phase was for pre-restoration. This is no longer the correct amount. This was the amount requested by the government, by the NCCA for the phase one, but this has been changed to 150 million. And it should have run from October 2013 to June 2014. And the activities were retrieval, recovery, salvage, material analysis, documentation, safety, structural assessment, conduct of detailed engineering studies, and soil boring tests. Some images of the first phase, as for instance, recovery of the images. This has been recovered already from the ruins, and this is the belfry, back of the belfry of Bohol. And important to put signages there telling people not to enter the site. Also, this is the sacristy in Lobok, the interior in Lobok. Still on the continuing assessment, and the clearing operation began like 2-3 weeks after the earthquake. You would see this portion of the mamposteria remains of the church in Bohol. But all of these have been cleared by now. So they simply piled these stones, and you will see that they put the stones and the side and then mark them. Here in Baclayon, they marked the stones, they documented the items, so that when the restoration phase would occur, would be conducted, would start, then it would be easier to identify where they came from. This used to be the dressed stones of the facade of Loon. So what they did was to simply put them on a pile. The question to ask is whether we have a restoration plan. Well, I won't say we don't have a restoration plan, but what we have would be principles to inform the plan and laws to enlighten the plan. I would be speaking of the principles later, but I will not dwell on the laws because that's a specialized topic, and that will amount to something like 3 years to study. So for the purpose of this conference, we will talk on the principles. Now, it's in your kit. You would find this table. If I would be able to give you a, not a walkthrough, but a brisk jog through the plan. This is the plan that I've been speaking of. It's a 650 calamity-related National Heritage Reconstruction and Restoration Program. It's by the government, and it's covered by law. RA 10352 is GAA, General Appropriations Act, for fiscal year 2014, and it's covered by SARO. You have heard this before, these terms, and NCA during the pork barrel scam. When this whole thing exploded, you would hear these terms. And so, but I was assured this does not come from the so-called DAP, the DAP. This is not money from DAP, but this is money from GAA. There's a pre-restoration, and there's a design of the master restoration plan, and then the plan implementation and associated site development. So you would see there's a phase, there are phases, there are titles to it, there's a coverage. Pretty much of phase one has been almost concluded, and we have expected output, the implementation dates, and then the completion dates. According to the MOA was signed by and between TIEZA, that's Tourism Infrastructure and Enterprise Zone Authority, NCCA, NM, and the NHCP. So if you look into the MOA, this is pretty much what we would see. There are many aspects to it, but I tried to simplify it by this way: the genesis of the plan, the repertorial stage, the second, experts discussion stage, the study stage, stakeholders consultation stage, and then the fifth stage is the implementation of initial phase a specific site restoration plan. So all of these come into play in order to make the plan. So if it's a question of whether do we have a plan, we have principles that would inform the plan, we have laws that would enlighten the plan. So what do we do? Well, of course, conservation is a multidisciplinary approach to retarding the biodegradation, chemical biodegradation of agricultural property. But we could do restoration. This is an example. That's the Cota de Leche in Manila. It had been restored. But we can also do reconstruction. That's the legislative building after the war, and that's the legislative building right after the war. And this is the after the reconstruction. This is now the National Museum. So we could do reconstruction of the churches, or we are inspired by the reconstruction of this church in Saxony, in Dresden. This is the Frauenkirche Church. Frauenkirche is a Church of Our Lady in Saxony, and this was bombed by the Allies in February of 1945, and the complete reconstruction did not occur until after the German unification in 1990. In 2004, 2005, this church was rededicated. It's originally Catholic, originally Romanesque in the 11th century, but in the 17th century they destroyed it and then replaced it with Baroque architecture. And then ownership was no longer with the Roman Catholics, but this was taken over by the Lutheran. So we are inspired by this structure and the efforts of the townspeople to reconstruct their church. Or we could do a lot of retrofitting of all the churches that we have. Like for instance, the Malabrigo Point, lighthouse, no? In Pampanga. And these are the guidelines that we were working on right after the earthquake. We thought that we would simply put in the guidelines in order to help us assess the plans. In accord with heritage conservation laws of the church and of the government, informed by national, international standards of heritage conservation, the diocese seeks to restore or reconstruct all its damaged heritage churches and their adjunct structures only insofar as they can be restored or can be reconstructed. Now, while we do that, the prevailing urgent immediate pastoral need is to erect alternate churches. So if you go there, you would find these alternate churches, like makeshift churches, in certain sites, if and when warranted, in need of such that are contemporaneous, creatively designed, and it's also heritage conscious, repurposable, and differential to the three natural laws of sacred architecture and respectful to the heritage church. The third principle is that to sustain this action, we need to have institutional training, and by that we take to mean the creation, the establishment of the Escuela Taller de Bohol, and this is supposed to begin on the 27th of August. This is a copy of the Escuela Taller de Intramuros, which of course a good friend of ours, Senor Carlos Gallego, is here. He would be able to explain that to us. The restoration of the work of the diocese, the reconstruction or the erecting of churches are inspired by certain biblical passages. So, like restoration, the biblical passage is the old is good. Anong luma ay pwede pa rin, maganda rin. And then second, on reconstruction, we are inspired by the words of also from our Lord Jesus. Every scribe who becomes a disciple of the kingdom of heaven is like a householder who brings out from his storeroom treasures, both old and new. Treasures, no? So treasures from the old and of the new, we would be able to harmonize them. And of course, we are open to the idea of constructing new churches. For instance, in those churches that we believe need to have a new construction. And we are, of course, inspired by that same sacred scriptures. First, the one sitting on the throne spoke, the world of the past is gone. Now I make all things new. So this is the future the future we're looking at. A fully restored heritage church, a fully reconstructed heritage church, a new heritage church. A new heritage church that respects the old, exhibits historical continuity, contemporaneous, heritage conscious, abides by the natural laws of sacred architecture. This is a 1924 picture of facade of Clarin. This is 1996, right after the earthquake, and this is now their new design. And we're not showing the interior, just the facade. And meanwhile, a good friend of ours would be speaking about the alternate church. We would be doing a number of alternate churches. Still, we have the criteria that we want to follow. This is supposed to be the church in Kobe. Kobe was struck by the 1995 earthquake by Shigaruban. And another good friend of ours would be able to discuss this later. The Anglican Church in New Zealand, damaged by the earthquake in 2011, and was replaced by the Shigaruban Paper Church. This is Kobe 1995, this is 2011. And this one will be discussed later also by I think Ruby or Professor Miyake will be able to discuss the design for the alternate church in Maribohol. But this is what we really want, a reconstructed, restored church that would give dignity to the celebration of divine worship. Salamat.
Thank you so much, Father. Our next speaker will be speaking about Project Gujarat. If anyone's wondering where Gujarat is, it's in India. It's a research and reconstruction planning of cultural heritage of Kutch, India, affected by 2001 Gujarat earthquake. Please help me welcome from Kwansai Gakuyu University, Professor Shu Yumane. A round of applause, please.
Hello everybody. My name is Shu Yamane from Kansei Gakuin University, Japan. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizing committee and all the staff of Japanese-Philippine Conference for Restoration and Conservation of Cebu and Bohol Island Cultural Heritage for providing me the opportunity of presentation and for the organizing the Bohol Island observation tour yesterday. I myself have been studying the Indian architecture and the Indian historic cities for more than 20 years. So today, I would like to speak my experience in India. The title of the presentation is Project Gujarat, Research and Reconstruction Planning of Cultural Heritage of Kutch, India, affected by 2001 Gujarat earthquake. 14 years ago, January 26, 2001, a big earthquake hit the west part of India. And the damage was so heavy, and the dead person was more than 20,000, and affected houses were more than 600,000. After the earthquake, researchers of Indian architecture and the Indian city organized one project group called Project Gujarat. The aim of this group was to research and propose the appropriate reconstruction plan for affected area in long term with a great regard for cultural heritage, including historic architecture, and also a traditional vernacular living environment. And the team was organized by the researchers in Japan and the architects from Japan. And also Indian researchers, NGO, and practitioners were joining in this team. And this project was supported by the Japanese Research Foundation, both private and public. In 2002, we started the investigation for Kutch area. Kutch area is this, and Bhuj is the central city of this area. We covered every kind of architecture heritages, like Hindu and Jain temples. This is before the earthquake, and after the earthquake damaged. And the next one is totally collapsed, and other Hindu temples. And Muslim architectures, mosques and shrines. It is called locally dargah. And cities and town architecture, like this. And traditional vernacular houses, town houses, and haveli and bunga. Haveli means a kind of a big mansion in the historical town, and the bunga is this houses of local agricultural settlement. And after this investigation, we made one documentation of damages of cultural heritages in Kutch in 2002. And in the process of this investigation, we discussed and determined to focus on Bhadreshwar town for intensive research and reconstruction planning. This map is the Bhadreshwar town. The right side is the medieval side, where prospered in the medieval time. And nowadays, west side village is the place where people are residing. And this area was formed after 18th century. Why we selected this town was Bhadreshwar is historically very important port town in medieval time, with a Muslim monument built in 12th century. That is oldest in India. And also Bhadreshwar had a well-kept townscape of traditional vernacular houses, including some beautiful havelis. This is mansion, built by a wealthy merchant community who was engaging in the Indian Ocean trade in 19th to 20th century. This is a Muslim monument of 12th century. The name is Ibrahim Dargah. Dargah means shrine of the holy Muslim saint. And this building has an inscription of 1159. That is the oldest Muslim inscription in Indian architecture. And those are the townscape of Bhadreshwar. It shows vernacular town houses of Bhadreshwar. Those are also the townscape of Bhadreshwar. This is a step well, very particular well in this area. And one of the Haveli is Krishna Haveli. Later I will explain very detailed. This is one of the very good Haveli in Bhadreshwar. And those are the damages of vernacular buildings of Bhadreshwar. Many buildings have had severe damage like this. And in the process of our research and reconstruction planning, regarding the research, we did three activities. First is evaluation and selecting of important historic building, and after that we made an inventory covering religious architecture, vernacular architecture, and townscape. And after that, we did the investigation and intensive research of variable architecture. Finally, we selected two architecture, and we measured the building and investigated the structural condition and damage, and material analysis, and also and so on. And also, we did the investigation about the Bangladeshi community. The reason why is we should know the social structure of Bangladeshi town for processing the reconstruction activity. This is the list of the buildings which listed in the inventory of cultural heritage in Bangladesh. One example is like this. We write the characteristics and built years and so on by text, and listed photos, and also made drawings of the building. And this shows the survey of townscape of Baghdad. Drawing like this. Okay. And also, we did the investigation of the traditional vernacular houses called Dero. In this area, the house called Dero was very popular and very it is very popularly designed, and the spatial pattern is like this, and the variation of their houses are like this. And also we investigated the vernacular design of doors and windows like this, and also the ornamental elements of vernacular architecture, the capitals and some other parts, balustrades and so on. And features eclectic design of traditional and Western elements. And also, this is one design of interior, traditional painting called Kamanga. This figure shows the community distribution of Dresden. The people are both Hindu community and also Muslim community. They are living mixed in this town. But there are some structures of distributing. In the center, Hindu people are residing, and in the peripheral area, Muslim people are residing. And after the investigation and research, we proceeded to the heritage reconstruction planning, and we selected two buildings. That will be we thought that would be the models of reconstruction. First one is the Ibrahim Dargah, Shrine of Muslim Holy Saint. That is the oldest Muslim monument in India. And we aimed the restoration to original condition. And that means why we selected this building was reconstruction for Muslim community. And second building was Krishna Haveli. That was a private temple and community hall of wealthy merchant community. And after the reconstruction, we aimed to convert this building to the public cultural facility. And this restoration, this reconstruction is for Hindu community. We have to take a balance to the Muslim community and Hindu community. And as I showed, this is a Ibrahim Dargah, which has some damages in the front side. This is a survey of Ibrahim Dargah and the damages of Ibrahim Dargah. It shows the damages part. And also very detailed investigation. It shows the reading of Qurans and the walls of Ibrahim Dargah. And after the research, we decided the reconstruction plan for Ibrahim Dargah. First is dismantling and rebuilding this building and the restoration to original condition as far as possible and maintaining the historical value. And also we intended to insert the dwell, a stone joint pin. That will be the earthquake resistant treatment. And also cleaning of the whitewash. Whitewash, as you know, that is a local tradition for building cosmetics by lime paintings. But it often disappears the original carvings. So we wanted to show the stone surface with beautiful carvings, original carvings. And maybe you cannot see the last line. We had to get permission of reconstruction from the Muslim community who manage this Dargah. And second one is the Krishna Haveli, as I showed this building. And the reconstruction plan for Krishna Haveli was first culture and life supporting facilities, inserting these facilities. And it contains adult education center and life supporting workshop and library and guest rooms for staying visitors of Bhadreshwar. And also inserting the museum of Bhadreshwar history and Kutch history and the Bhatia community who are the owner of the Krishna Haveli. And in this Krishna Haveli, the Bhatia community had their own god, and it is kind of their community temple. So we should have kept this community temple. And also we should insert the structural reinforcement, retrofit of RC structure for earthquake resistance. This figure shows the construction plan of Krishna Haveli ground floor, and this is for first floor. And this picture shows the retrofit plan of earthquake resistant structure by RC's structure. And we made the CG images of the reconstruction. And also in the process of reconstruction activities, education and the period of heritage reconstruction activity was also done to aim the long-term heritage reconstruction by local people themselves. And we tried to organize a working group of local people. The members are from a variety of caste communities and supported by local NGO. And we conducted a heritage tour for local people to develop the consciousness to their own heritage. And we also made the heritage map of Bhadreshwar that aimed to appeal of the heritage reconstruction activity to both local and outside people. And this map was distributed at the Aina Mahal Museum in Bhuj City. This picture shows the heritage tour of the local people, and this picture shows the heritage map of Bhadreshwar. More than 20 buildings were listed. But there were many difficulties of heritage reconstruction in Bhadreshwar. First was there was no town map of research. So town map was made by Project Gujarat team survey by our service. And the second problem was financial difficulties for reconstruction. Research funds were comparatively easily supported, but reconstruction funds were much difficult to get. All the application to the Heritage Reconstruction Grant were failed eventually. Heritage Reconstruction Grant tend to support monumental architecture, not the living heritage. And the reconstruction plan could not be realized finally by the lack of funds. And the difficulties of number 3 is the continuity of heritage reconstruction activity. Project Gujarat team can visit the site only 1 or 2 times in a year. And the local NGOs' main activities were child education and women livelihood support. So heritage reconstruction was too much task for the local NGOs. And also working group of local people did not well function because of few social exchanges between the caste communities. That is a very Indian typical problem. And number 4 is the difference of system and sense to the heritage conservation. Historic building protection system is only for monumental buildings in India, but not for vernacular buildings. And only some NGOs, like INTAC, are trying the activity of conservation and reconstruction of vernacular architecture heritage. And the low consciousness of local people to the living architecture heritage was also the difficulty. Because of many difficulties, our heritage reconstruction plan in Bangladesh was not realized. However, I hope this presentation contributes anything to the discussion of heritage restoration and conservation in Cebu and Bohol. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Professor. For our next speaker, he has been the Executive Secretary of the Inter-American Committee on Ports, or CIP, of the Organization of American States based in Washington, D.C. since 1993. Oh, still the day when I was born. So, the year, rather. Excuse me. Forgive me for the technical difficulties. I will clarify something. And now I'm back. The committee is an intergovernmental forum that brings together the highest level national port authorities of the Western Hemisphere in order to promote port modernization and development through cooperation with the active participation of the private sector. Currently, he is the OAS representative to the IMO, IAPH, AAPA, and other international maritime port private organizations. Mr. Gallegos has been with the OAS since 1980 and has served in different high-level positions in the international trade, customs, and other trade facilitation areas. He is an economist and was born in Peru. He holds an MA degree in development economics from East Anglia University in England and has a Bachelor of Science in Economics from the Universidad La Molina in Lima, Peru. Lima, Peru, rather. Back in his Lima or Lima, I'm not sure, I'm sorry. So Mr. Gallego will talk about the master plan and Escuela Taller, two combined tools for preserving architectural heritage. The Senior Program Manager, Spanish Agency for International Development Cooperation, or AECID, in the Embassy of Spain in the Philippines. Please help me welcome Mr. Carlos Gallego.
suppose I'm not the one explained by the speaker. I'm Spanish. I'm an architect working for the Spanish Corporation Technical Office in Manila. I've been working in the computation system for the last 12 years in cultural heritage and urban planning. Better now? Yes. So, I would like, first of all, thank you very much, Juan Ramón Jiménez, for inviting me to that event, and also University of San Carlos for welcoming this kind of changes. I think they are so important. As the speaker said, my intention this morning is just to share with you our approach, combining some tools quite important for the architectural heritage preservation and disaster risk reduction. So let me. Okay. So as Professor Fujioka and Professor Espina already said, we also think that disaster risk reduction and cultural heritage preservation are very close related. So that's why I showed you that Spanish Corporation is working in the Philippines in disaster risk reduction sector, including cultural heritage preservation. Our approach in cultural heritage preservation, it could be conceived as a toolbox. It's a very, very easy toolbox, having mainly three kinds of tools. First tool could be called a cultural heritage management office, as for example, you have in Manila Old Town Intramuros Administration, but also other two tools, which I'll try this morning to explain a little bit further. This is Escuela Taller and a master plan. Those three tools have a scope to have long-term strategies, coordination mechanisms, and also try to have operational and contingency plans in cultural heritage preservation. First of all, let's try to start by Escuela Taller. What is an Escuela Taller? An Escuela Taller is an operational tool based on job training, in Spanish, aprender haciendo, or in English, learning by doing, or doing by learning. The Escuela Taller try to achieve its goals just doing very carefully 3 steps. First step should be the recruitment of the students, trying to access in the Escuela Taller the most impoverished level of citizens, trying to integrate them through grants and other tools, and trying to insert the Escuela Taller in the community. Second step, through a very specific and very specialized education, trying to give students very easy concepts in cultural heritage preservation and also in theory, but stressing the practical vital experience of every student and every professor. Trying to have a gender equity in every Escuela Taller, we support to open. And very important, trying to mainstream labor market strategies in every activity of Escuela Taller. Our third step in an Escuela Taller is trying to focus in the labor market strategies in order to develop an endogenous development, in order to strengthen the cultural heritage preservation, having observatories in market and job strategies, summarizing, trying to make the step from the informal activities to micro-enterprise activities for the students. So, the three components in a Escuela Taller, in every Escuela Taller activity are development component, job training component, and job insertion and labor market component. As you can see in the intersection of those three components, you can see the main objective every activity in a Escuela Taller try to achieve. What about partners? Who are the ideal partners in a Escuela Taller project? First of all, main partners, we understand that should be the public institutions related with culture, public institutions related with youth and labor, and public institutions related with educational or professional education. But also, we understand there are other very important partners in an Escuela Taller, which are other public institutions interested on the cultural preservation of a certain element, which are the owners, and also private donors. Why an Escuela Taller could be useful in a disaster event? That should be your next question. We think that a disaster recovery requires some very quickly elements. First of all, an implementation of preventive measures is needed, and where Escuela Taller students with specific skills can help very easily. For the recovery, also will be needed a hand labor trained on cultural heritage preservation. Also, Escuela Taller students could be very useful. And finally, and very important also, the dissemination and appreciation of heritage preservation values by mainly youth and impoverished citizens, which is the most difficult to achieve in the whole society. So we arrive at our second tool, which is a master plan.